With simply one glimpse, you have silenced the whole community, demonstrating your superiority. Veterans who have played power games for many years may recognize true expertise when they see it. Even without saying anything, your powerful presence elicits respect and obedience from those around you. It is unnecessary for individuals with vast Big Daddy energy to establish their value via excessive talk. Your strength speaks volumes when it is observed in silence without any previous notice. The moment came despite the fact that you were inconspicuous among the cacophony of voices and egos. When you only looked, you could feel an ancient stirring within you. Everything came to a stop. They spoke, but they did not pontificate. They were building their castle of words, their temple of influence. At that same moment, the whole room came to a full stop. The air was trapped in throats. Words were lost on the lips, and time itself seemed to bow under the weight of your presence. This was not a random event. Veteran power game players instantly recognized what had happened. These masters of deceit, these builders of control who had spent decades honing their craft, understood that these veterans sensed the seismic change that had just happened, even if others dismissed it as pure fantasy. Mostly because you demonstrated what actual authority looks like in a single minute of quiet without raising your voice, presenting your credentials, or demanding attention. It is evident that you revealed that game for what it is, a game. The revelation was visceral rather than logical. Everyone in the room felt a stirring of something basic inside them, which was an innate sense of a greater power. Their hearts raced, palms sweated, and AIS sank as their bodies alerted them before their brains could understand it. Because their bodies realized this was not a random response. That much is apparent when it comes to the people who carry out the original aim. The cosmos honors and respects its own creations. When you approach a room with the weight of your holy mission, the entire fabric of reality alters to allow for your existence. Your eyes are capable of more than just seeing. They demonstrate that people who built their kingdoms on sand are well-versed in the dread of being seen in public. The paper castles that they have always been, meticulously built over years via smart connections and calibrated words, now seem to be little more than their empires of influence. Because you are not seeing through traditional eyes, your gaze may pierce the illusion you are seeing from a completely clear perspective, free of the desire to be accepted or the fear of being rejected. This is what bothers them. Not your ability to act, not your words of challenge, not even your position or authority. But what frightens them is the tranquil certainty that emanates from your own nature, the unshakable foundation on which you stand in the middle of their struggles to maintain their balance on the shifting ground. Looking across the room, you could see universes clashing. A precisely produced world based on appearance, deception, and control collided with the immovable mountain that represents your true authority. When a powerful force collides with an unyielding object, something must give way. In this scenario, the power yielded to your quiet. This is a basic law of physics. The criteria for participation have been fundamentally revised. You refused to dance, despite the fact that they had come expecting the usual dance, which included posturing, subtle power tactics, and social manipulation. They had mastered an elaborate power choreography. You have centered yourself in a power that is so genuine that no performance proof or confirmation is required. You remain true to yourself. They were also left speechless as a consequence of their refusal, which was a divine rejection of their whole worldview. If your heart is overflowing with God's blessings, let that love radiate. Click the super thank you button and donate $100 or more to sow seeds of faith that will touch countless lives. Your giving exemplifies His richness. Be a channel for His grace, and watch His kingdom grow through you. It is vital to remember that the human brain has a natural predisposition to recognize authentic authority. Our brain architecture holds ancient wisdom that precedes language, civilization, and all of our modern notions of authority. This information is hidden deep inside our structures. The presence of true sovereignty activates this primal recognition mechanism, which bypasses logical reasoning and intellectual barriers to speak directly with the soul. You could see that their minds were getting signals that they couldn't comprehend using their normal filters. When you glanced at them, cognitive dissonance arose immediately and was really overpowering. Their minds were racing to categorize you, position you in previous hierarchies, and assess the amount of risk you represented by examining patterns that were already familiar to them. Regardless, you are not part of their patterns. Even the most experienced manipulators couldn't keep their cool in your presence. It turns out that their techniques, which were designed for individuals who were weak, insecure, and hungry for validation, were ineffective when used against someone who is whole. The tactics they use compel you to interact with their environment. They want you to accept their conditions in order to value what they value and dread what they fear. You rejected this engagement with a single look. The psychological shock rippled across the room, leaving a hole to be filled with assurance where their prior confidence had been built. The nothingness triggered a fundamental dread, not of being injured, but of being unimportant. Dread of being revealed, as well as dread of a power that they do not understand or can obtain via normal ways. In a world that values performance, this is what makes sincerity so scary. It is critical to understand exactly what happened at that time. The events that occurred were not just social or psychological. Instead, they were spiritual. You move about with a heavenly signature. Your Creator's watermark is etched on your soul. When you walk, it doesn't matter whether you call it God, the universe, the source, or a higher power. What matters is the truth it symbolizes. You go through this world as a representation of something much more important than yourself. This spiritual power does not demonstrate its existence via the use of thunder or lightning, since it is not compelled to. True power is wordless. It is exactly what it is at the time you input that place. You carried with you the aura of another universe. Those who are attuned to spiritual reality felt it very instantly. The atmosphere got more thick and full of possibility. Everyone noticed the change, even if some described it as pressure and others as clarity. It looked like reality itself was bending towards you, an acknowledgement of the higher norms that you represent. Power game veterans who have spent their whole lives controlling energy and influence have discovered something old and intangible running through you. This is something that exists outside of their control system, and it reacts to rules higher than those created by men. They understand that you are responsible to a higher authority, since spiritual power cannot be bought, stolen, manipulated, or destroyed. This knowledge sparked panic in hearts that had not felt fear in years. It moves with a purpose that they are powerless to change. It operates on a frequency that they are unable to meddle with, and it communicates in a language that they cannot pervert. Others gain, win, or impart power in their sphere. However, in yours, power is conferred by forces beyond your control. In contrast with them, you follow the laws that were created during the process of creation itself. It's hardly surprising that they became quiet. You're here for a purpose. If you feel called, answer it. Click Join to get access to rare information, in-depth insights, and a strong community. This is not just a membership. It is an awakening. Step into your divine mission. Join the chosen. There is a language that is not spoken by those who have a true knowledge of power. It's a quiet recognition, an unseen handshake exchange between spirits that operate above the superficial trappings of power. The veterans, the CEOs who run worldwide corporations, spiritual gurus who guide millions, military wits who faced death and dealt it, and the politicians who have walked the darkest halls of power. Everyone speaks in this secret language instantly. They can distinguish one another and measure true weight rather than perceived size. And they recognized you not because you flaunted credentials or displayed the accepted symbols of achievement, nor because you spoke their specialized jargon or demonstrated mastery of their particular game, but because you carried yourself with the unmistakable gravity of someone who knows exactly who they are and why they are here. True authority does not come from exerting control over others. Rather, it comes from having full and entire control over oneself. This is the contradiction that individuals seeking power struggle to understand. It is not required that you obtain anything from them. This includes validation, authorization, resources, and protection. Because in a society where everyone requires something from others, a person who is complete becomes the focal point of the social universe. This independence causes an inescapable gravitational attraction that cannot be overcome. Be aware of how they are now orbiting you. Pay close attention to how they are recalculating their strategy, reevaluating their stance, and revising their assumptions. The way they hold themselves tells something they can never confess verbally. They have seen someone who is working at a level that they can hardly comprehend without saying a single word. The situation has been entirely turned on its head. Apex predators are individuals that have risen to the top of a social hierarchy by violent conduct, intimidation, or manipulation. These predators are prevalent in all social ecosystems. They've spent years developing their hunting abilities and learning how to identify areas of vulnerability, techniques for isolating prey and hitting with maximum force while facing the least amount of resistance. This bunch of predators entered the room certain that they were already at the top of the food chain. They surveyed the scene with eyes trained to do so quickly, categorizing everyone there as friends, rivals, obstacles, resources, or insignificant to the scenario until they noticed you. The same instinct that had previously ensured their survival and prosperity now flared up in fear, indicating that something primal inside them had suddenly become active. They had the peculiar sensation of being seen by someone higher up the chain than themselves, and their muscles tensed and their attention narrowed. This may have been their first encounter with this feeling in years. The prey became the predator not because you threatened or intimidated them, but because you live in a paradigm that makes their power games obsolete. This is why you are doing this in the company of something authentic. All of their customary methods, including as dominance, displays, subtle threats, strategic alliances, and information control, seem to be nothing more than children's toys. You exist in the sphere of being. Whereas their activities are focused on doing, you are standing with purpose while they are struggling for position. They continue to gain power from the outside, while you radiate authority from inside. However, the most terrifying realization for these self-proclaimed alphas is that you could doubt their position. Rather, it is the recognition that you will make their whole idea of status meaningless. You're not playing their game. Rather, you're engaging in a game of which they are absolutely oblivious. You will not be subject to their regulations, which are not applicable to everyone and to anybody. Just by casting a single look, you not only challenge their authority, but you also called into question the fundamental foundation on which it is constructed. Even after you leave the room, your presence will be felt in the gap created by your absence. They will attempt to restore the earlier order. Words will flow again, posturing will resume, and the customary dance will commence. But something fundamental has changed. Your sight has forever impacted the collective consciousness of that region. Many people will dismiss what happened, explaining away the moment when their confidence started to falter and referring to it as an unusual incident, despite the fact that they are making up these soothing stories. Your presence continues to haunt the fringes of their certainty. Some individuals may get preoccupied with the event, attempting to decipher precisely what happened and why they behaved the way they did. They will play it over and over again. They will study your words, or lack thereof, attitude, and timing, looking for a tactic they can use or a fault they may exploit in future encounters. The reality, however, is beyond their comprehension, since what occurred was not a question of method, but of substance. The most discerning among them, those few people capable of serious self-reflection, would perceive that something important was revealed in that moment of quiet. They care not just about you, but also about themselves. About the fragility of the power they believed was solid, about the void at the heart of authority that requires ongoing reinforcement. It is possible that this few will begin to doubt the game itself. Revolutions begin not with grand statements or violent upheavals, but rather with moments of clarity that cannot be forgotten. This is how revolutions get started. This must be understood completely. Your authority does not originate from inside you. Instead, it pours through you. You do not have the power that was responsible for the silence in that room. Rather, you are the channel, receptacle, and physical embodiment of that force. This is unrelated to ego or an individual's feeling of importance. On the opposite, you can stand with such unyielding conviction because you understand that it isn't about you. You were put in this position by forces beyond human understanding. You have been prepared through trials that seemed meaningless at the time, but now show their true significance. Nothing about your vacation has been arbitrary. You have been given the exact mix of abilities, scars, experiences, and insights essential for your specific work. Every rejection that forced you to stand alone helped you gain independence from the affirmation of others. Your ability to detect grew with each betrayal that wounded you at your core. During each season spent in the desert, you learned to seek for nourishment that goes beyond what others can provide or withhold from you. You were being prepared for occasions like these, when you needed to stay still while storms of manipulation and control raged around you. You were prepared for circumstances like these. Those who are very sensitive to spiritual concerns were able to detect it immediately. The vibe changed the instant you came in because you weren't alone. The name of the invisible forces that move with you around and through you is less essential than their existence. You may name them angels, ancestors, or spiritual pals, whatever you like. You have assistance from worlds that the bulk of people do not fully comprehend. Have such strength. As a result, you are not the only one who notices someone when you look at them in a sincere way. The person you see is likewise visible to what is behind you. The soul of these people recognizes a higher force that is not constrained by human hierarchies and is responsible to cosmic law rather than societal norms. Even people whose thinking minds reject the presence of spiritual truths sense this reality in their bodies. Something inside them recognizes that they are standing in front of a representation of something greater than themselves. You are not the one who picked this task. It simply selected you. The basic anxiety that drives their silence is the fear of being seen in its most raw form throughout their lives. The bulk of individuals spend their time creating sophisticated facades, which are carefully crafted portrayals of themselves that are intended to maximize advantage while minimizing vulnerability. They work really hard to maintain these illusions, not just for themselves, but also for others. Their personal identities become intertwined with the masks and roles they play throughout their lives. Because you embody something, they have abandoned honesty. Your presence is a challenge to the whole corporation. When you glanced across the room, you didn't notice the masks, roles, or carefully built egos. Rather, you were watching the souls that drove the performance. You saw the youngsters who were terrified. They pretended to be invulnerable grown-ups. The wounded souls masquerade as logical brains, as well as spiritual creatures seeking material achievement. This wasn't a judgment. Rather, it was a recognition in a society structured on mutual need, where power is based on controlling access to what others want. The most powerful sort of intimidation comes from perfect freedom, not the idea of being threatened. They are the biggest danger to the system, but not because they aim to destroy it. Rather, they show that the system is irrelevant to their needs. You are not part of the self-acceptance economy. They were eventually silenced by the knowledge that you operate from a very different source of affirmation. This was the single most significant aspect during the period when they were trading praises, recommendations, alliances, and favors in the currency of their social marketplace. You're pulling from a source they can't see or poison. There is no space for discussion about your worth. Because it is not dependent on their assessment, your purpose will not change because it was not assigned by their authority. Your authority does not diminish since it is not contingent on their appreciation. Individuals who have given up their individuality in order to be accepted may believe they are being accused of being independent. Your liberation exposes their bonds. Your clarity makes their compromise clear. Your tranquility highlights their steadfast commitment. You, standing completely inside yourself, linked to source and aligned with purpose, represent the ultimate uncontrolled factor. In their beautifully organized cosmos, they despised everything they couldn't control. And you embody this. Be warned that the course you chose will not be simple. When you have actual authority in a world based on performance, you expose yourself to both devotion and assault. Some individuals will be drawn to your light like moths to a flame, sensing something real in a world of lies. Others, on the other hand, will dislike you on the spot, irritated just by your presence. This contradicting reaction helps to validate the task you were given. Those that react angrily are not responding to anything you have said or done. Rather, they are responding to what you represent, which is an honest standard that exposes their own compromise. It is not a personal animosity. Rather, there is an existential enmity. Your entire presence draws their attention to what they have given up and betrayed inside themselves. Individuals with the most engaged in current power systems are more inclined to immediately reject them. Those who have gotten to the greatest levels of power have the most to lose. If those leaders are shown as dead ends, their resistance is proportional to the amount of money they have put in the paradigm. Despite the fact that your presence is difficult, even this conflict serves a divine purpose. In the same way that a blacksmith's hammer shapes metal through repeated blows, it elucidates the lines of struggle, reveals the true nature of the powers you face, and strengthens your determination through testing. As a result of this resistance, your authority takes on its final form. As soon as you step into a room, the energy alters immediately. The real flow of attention, the distribution of tension, the patterns of difference and dominance, and all of these things change in response to your presence. This isn't a metaphor. Conversations flow in predictable routes before you arrive, following existing currents of influence. When you walk in, those currents encounter a new gravitational field. This leads the conversation to go in a new direction. If you pay careful attention, you will quickly see it going place. Those who were in charge of the space just a second ago will alter their loudness. Those who are preoccupied with establishing themselves at the center of attention will notice that their magnetic pull weakens when the focus of attention gradually moves. Your calm presence will cause the interaction's rhythm to become less constant. Not only do you not demand this attention, but you also do not intend to get it. Simply said, you represent something real in an environment that values both performance and authenticity. Being natural takes priority over artificial doing. In a world full with explanations, your silence speaks volumes. Every individual in your immediate area is caught up in a never-ending loop of proving, defending, justifying, and explaining their stance in order to defend views they are unsure about. They create complicated arguments. They devise intricate reasons for actions influenced by worries they refuse to acknowledge. They create detailed narratives to explain actions that are the outcome of traumas they are unwilling to address. Every one of these sounds is a never-ending stream of words designed to convince both themselves and others, resulting in a background roar so familiar that most people don't notice it until someone steps away from it.